We start off at the Cheyenne Union Pacific Depot, which was built in 1886. It was last used as an Amtrak station in 1979 when Amtrak moved their Cheyenne station to Boree, Wyoming. Since 1993, it has housed the Cheyenne Depot Museum, which unfortunately I did not get to tour. Inside the museum are plenty of Union Pacific artifacts and a model railroad. I believe the depot also has some rooms that can be rented out and some offices for people in the city. Outside the depot are also some historic buildings, as well as this arch that has a train on it. Outside the depot are these two large cowboy boots. I believe there are some more around Cheyenne. Inside the depot there's this old semaphore signal. It's a rare 3-light distance signal, which I think is rare or unnecessary since distance signals only have green and yellow. I also got some pictures of the lobby of the depot. There's also this little free library that has the depot on the top of it. They even have some of the original ticket games. There's also this little thing of the primary donors for the Cheyenne Depot Museum. I also got to see some of the historical equipment parked around the roundhouse and the machine shop, including a lot of old Union Pacific yellow box cars. I believe this old baggage car that's turned into an MOW car still has its wheels. Other baggage cars spread around the roundhouse don't have wheels. One of the two auxiliary water tenders for the steam program are sitting out, both of which had their appearance changed in 2006. And I also saw SD70M number 4014, which was built in 2000, and it pulled Big Boy 4014 from Sonoma, California here to Cheyenne. I thought after it finished carrying 4014, the Big Boy here, it was here for a long time until it was to be withdrawn, but actually it was active in 2015 and 2017. I personally think Union Pacific should have given this diesel to the museum in Sonoma, California. Number 7761 is an ES44AC, which was built in 2007. In this view of the roundhouse, you can see some of the baggage cars that are on the ground. This building is the steam workshop where Union Pacific maintains their steam locomotive fleet here. It was kind of difficult to get close enough to the fence so that I could stick my lens through the holes. Number 1871 is an SD40N, which was built in 1980 for the Union Pacific and rebuilt in 2012. I believe these old metal sheds are for the stairs from the platforms that used to be here. One of the pieces of equipment around the turntable is an ex-Rock Island caboose and a Union Pacific bay window caboose. This maroon baggage car body was rebuilt with a large rolling door. This engine is number 928, an E8A. It was built in 1950 and retained by the Union Pacific for pulling special trains into 1980, and then was stored in Topeka until it was moved to Cheyenne in around 1999. There's also a caboose still in MOW blue. On the other side of the bridge, there are some more interesting stored rolling stock, like these two box cars that date from the 50s to 70s-ish. And this diner car that's painted in Southern Pacific daylight orange. There's also a Union Pacific diner, a Union Pacific baggage, and an MOW gray baggage car. There's quite a lot of UP yellow box cars here in Cheyenne. This is a view of the yard from the I-180 bridge facing west. I won't bother pausing this shot. To the left is Chicago Northwestern 401, an F7A that was built in 1949 and used as their OCS power and was stored here in Cheyenne since 1996. There's also another Southern Pacific daylight passenger car and what I think are 838 and 4014's tenders. 838 is another FEF3 that is kept in the roundhouse as a source of spares for 844. The day before I was in Cheyenne, 844 was doing her test run and I saw her train parked outside. And this is the second time I've seen 6936 in person. Now we go back up the other way. Back over, I saw another Southern Pacific passenger car, two manual snowplows, a crane, and a bay window caboose. And I thought Union Pacific retired those old snowplows. About a mile away from the Cheyenne Depot is Holiday Park, where Union Pacific Big Boy 4004 is on display. Big Boy number 4004 was built in September 1941 and was placed here in 1963. But you're probably wondering, why don't they just store 4004 instead of 4014? But the problem with that is that some of 4004's parts were used on 3985. On some sides of the Big Boy, some of the lettering is missing. This picture shows how 4014 looked like in 1977. This picture was taken around 1994 when it was possibly repainted then. In 2004, it still had its right side numbers. But almost 2 whole years after I saw this locomotive, it was unveiled in new paint in July 2018. It looks like they also changed out the rails it was sitting on. There are 2 signs about the Big Boy next to the engine. This one is probably when the locomotive was placed here, and this one was probably installed later. This one goes into a little more depth about the Big Boys, and also shows some of the other railroad attractions here in Cheyenne. I did not get to see the French Mercy train boxcar since I saw the one in Kansas. There are also some memorials for people who helped restore this locomotive. The bell on 4004 seems to be missing its middle clanger piece. You can see some wear and erosion on the right side firebox and cab. Not to mention the fact that this side of the cab was never re-lettered. The The cab interior is chained up with the original cab doors. But the right side of the tender doesn't look too bad. This drain thing also looks a little squished. The right side of the trucks and bearings also look good. But the back side of the tender is also missing its lettering. Here's the back side of sister engine 4012's tender for comparison, which is on display at Steamtown in Pennsylvania. The left side of the tender also seems to be in good shape, although the fire hose only lettering is missing. The hand-painted lettering is present on the left side. And the top of the boiler jacket also seems to be a little worn. On the tender, there are SKF bearings on the small truck and Timken bearings on the rest of the wheels. I'm glad the original builder's plates are still in place. The front, you can see there are no numbers on the headlights and the number board looks plain. Now we go to Lions Park to see Union Pacific 1242, another engine on display in Cheyenne. It is inside the Rotary Century Plaza's display. This is engine number 1242, a T57 class 460. One of the oldest surviving Union Pacific locomotives. It was built in 1890 by the Cook Locomotive and Machine Works. This engine spent most of its life between 1921 and 1954 working between Walcott and Saratoga, Wyoming. 1242 was donated in 1955 and was given the nickname Old Sadie. This locomotive has a spark arrestor around the chimney. Has a very large tender deck that is lower than the cab floor. I don't think this tender was the original tender that 1242 got when she was built, but was added later on. There's this painted over superheater builder plate which was probably installed in 1916. The boiler seems to have some rust on it while the dome looks in great shape. Sometime later on, 1242 was fitted with a dynamo generator which powers the lights on the locomotive. The back of the cab is boarded up and the firebox seems to extend into the cab like many 19th century locomotives. But there is cab floor space in the middle of the cab. Apparently, cylinder blocks that were cast at Atchison, Kansas didn't stay on Santa Fe locomotives only. On the side of the locomotive is this old switch stand and whistle sign in the shape of a keystone. There's also a second switch stand with a lantern on it. Number 1242 isn't the only surviving T57 locomotive. Sister engine number 1243 also survives in Omaha, Nebraska. The fence that surrounds 1242 is made of a bunch of old tools and metalwork. There's even a wheel off of a maintenance of way vehicle. Also next to 1242 was a crossbuck and a bench depicting Union Pacific locomotives. Not only did this park show the history of Cheyenne, Wyoming via the Union Pacific Railroad, but also through agriculture. And representing agricultural history is a 1929 Farmall tractor. I have no idea when this tractor was donated and put on display, but I do know it's a 20 horsepower tractor. The neat thing about early tractors is that you can see a lot of their working components. Obviously, tractor manufacturers back then didn't take into considering dirt from the fields clogging the motors. One last thing I saw train related in Cheyenne, Wyoming was a gravel train headed by a City Rail ES44AC and a BNSF ES44AC. There is a BNSF yard in the northwest part of Cheyenne, Wyoming, so it's not all Union Pacific City. What was also neat was that they're pulling gravel conveyor cars. And with that, this concludes the video.